Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of Sonic Host Coast to Coast. I am your host, Radri, and I am joined today by my co-host, or leading host, or whatever name he wants to go by.
That would be me, the one and only Godzilla.
Now, is
That's
that
GAWZ.
like, oh my God, Godzilla,
Oh
right?
my god! Exactly. The other name is trademark Toho, and I don't want Toho after me.
Fair, very fair, very fair. So we are here. We wanted to start this podcast because we are two very big Sonic fans. For somebody who doesn't know who we are, my name is Radri. I used to do another Sonic podcast named Sonic Historian, which has been kind of on hiatus because it's hard, making things historical or being you draw a fine line between piracy and privateering and trying.
Arr.
Yeah, I mean, and so and having also to deal with the fans, especially if you're making a show based upon people who are in the fandom or people who work inside Sonic the Hedgehog. It's sort of a hard balance that you have to maintain, and you have to think. You have to juggle a lot of things.
You've put in a lot of effort, and people should really do check it out. Some of the old backworks. Radri puts a lot of heart and effort into them. Certainly check it out. Show him some love.
Yeah, when that show comes back up. But I mean, I'm making the secondary show with our good friend Godzilla here as a way to, relax and just talk about Sonic the Hedgehog because
We got a lot to talk about. It's
full disclosure,
interesting times.
Yeah. So a little background. Scott lives in Seattle. Can I say that, or do I need to mute this later? Do I need to edit this out?
Mute it later.
Oh, okay. Well, where should I? Because it's coast to coast. How do we?
Go.
How do we say where you live?
Well, no, you can say Seattle. I just said.
All right, Seattle. Okay, Seattle. Okay. So yeah, I live in Seattle. Or no, excuse me. The fuck am I saying? Oh yeah, full disclosure too. This show, I haven't even made the artwork for it yet. This could just be called parental advisory, so we can say words like fuck and shit and
exactly
and titties and things.
The following podcast contains adult and coarse language and should not be listened to minors.
Yes,
or at least mature.
Yeah, because I don't know. Because what is it? Godzilla, Scott here. I talk to him pretty much every day, and we just talk about nonsense Sonic stuff all the time. And it pretty much got to the point where I just said, you know what, we should just make a podcast of this show. Or what we'd talk about all the time. Because, eventually you start to feel like, man, I'm just stuck in this echo chamber of talking to my one friend. But I feel like, there are people out there, and I feel like these opinions need to be heard, and more people need to hear them and listen to them. So
they feel like they're represented.
Yes, thus the creation of this podcast came to be. That's why you hear the voice coming out of my mouth, and we are going to discuss many, many topics. I guess, Scott, maybe you can, should I get used to calling you Scott or Godzilla? Does it bother me I call you Scott? Okay. All right, Scott.
Let's go with it.
All right. Scott, tell me. You came to this show prepared, unlike me. You actually put together like a Google Doc, like a list of things to talk about. So what are we talking about today?
So, what I'm calling this segment is called The State of the Sonic, where we can kind of really discuss what Sonic has been going on, or what Sonic's been up to in the last 4 years. Because let's all be honest here. The last 4 years has been arguably the most popular and most lucrative the franchise has been since the early 90s. The movies with Paramount have pretty much brought him from mediocrity, mid-mediocrity, back into the limelight. Now, it was a rough start, as we all know, Ugly Sonic, but now that we're here, we've had some games come out, we've kind of seen what Sega and its partnerships with IDW, with Paramount, has been putting out. Obviously, the much-anticipated Sonic 3 is coming out in 6 months. It's kind of a really interesting time in the franchise history where now we can talk about and say, what's going on? Is it going in a direction that we like? or is it kind of succumbing to a lot of the unfortunateness that come with corporate mascots? And spoiler alert, Sonic's kind of running in place. We might not be realizing it, but it kind of is. So I think if we kind of turn the clock back to 2020, obviously you had the movie come out, people were excited, kind of came in code with COVID, which kind of put a damper on things. But for a lot of people, a lot of fans, myself included, who had been Sonic fans growing up, kind of gave us time to come back because things were happening again. And obviously, a lot of us kind of gravitated to the IDW comic book that came out. Obviously, Sega ended its Guinness World Record run on Archie, though I think most people knew that.
Yeah, I was amazed to see
that
that when that came out. But yes.
That I think pretty much that relationship was starting to get strained since like 2007. So the fact that it lasted about another 10 years is kind of impressive.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so obviously IDW comes up. It starts off really great. Introduce some new characters. Do a kind of a fun little quasi adaptation of Sonic Heroes before then going into the much anticipated, much talked about Metal Virus Saga, which then of course had that odd coincidence of happening during COVID, delay releases, so on and so forth. And then obviously it continued to build up to issue 50, which was the Battle for the Empire, Starline's big plan to break the Sonic cycle. Ha ha, Ian, we see you. And then ultimately the big oof of the boulder crashing down on him. Now, of course, by this time, Ian kind of had passed the baton to Evan Stanley, who had been, again, writing since the Archie days, or late Archie days, and great artist. If you've read her fan comic, she's a great writer, too. Just all-around nice person. I've chatted with her on Tumblr a couple times. It's been fun. But obviously, Ian has he's still writing, but it's clear Sega has kind of brought him onto some more projects on the back end that are, as we all know, that Ian's famous hashtag knowing smile. So Ian kind of took a step back, and with it came a new direction from Sega of kind of smaller stories as opposed to the big sagas that kind of Ian was known from, especially during his Archie days and then the beginning of the IDW. So that kind of all comes into really play in the last 5 months, where we've kind of set up the story. Evan introduced a new villain, Clutch the Possum, kind of the new street level gangster. He's got the pinstripe suit. He's in it for the money as opposed to the world domination.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's been kind of doing some machinations. He's kind of been hired Mimic the Octopus, everyone's favorite Metal Gear Solid, inspired mercenary, though that for some that might be Whisper instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, he also has recruited Surgeon Kit to infiltrate the Restoration, which is kind of, for us old Archie fans, and though, of course, if you're listening to this, you've probably read the comics, the more NGO version of the Freedom Fighters with, funding and mass volunteer work. So he's basically implemented a whole new plan to seize control of the Restorations through this, what seems to be a very public televised Sonic Riders story. So all the Riders fans are excited. The Babylon Rogues are back. But the pacing and build up to this has been very, very glacial at times, because there was a couple issues where Clutch had hired the Babylon Rogues to steal from Knuckles. So Knuckles is trying to get an artifact back. He teams up with his old, the Chaotix, which, Knuckles Chaotix. It's classic. But those stories are implemented with Rough and Tumble breaking into Vanilla and Cream's house to mess with the cooking. And it's just like, the concept of these stories aren't bad, but they feel like these would be better off for like an annual, like little mini story, as opposed to a B story of a regular issue. And then I kind of went into with issue 68, which was just Sonic and Tails putting around, testing out a new extreme gear, and meeting this large salamander in this underground cave. That was about it. And then the main book goes on hiatus for 4 months, where we get the Fang the Hunter miniseries, which I was initially excited about and was okay, but didn't quite go the
The
way I
fans
think.
clearly weren't very excited about it. I didn't see much talk on Twitter about it.
Yeah, the Fang fandom, my poor hooligans, R.I.P. But
You think so? You think R.I.P. Really?
well, spoilers alert for that, because the series is set before the events of Sonic Superstars,
Oh, I didn't know
and it
that.
ends off.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a prequel to Sonic
Dude.
Superstars.
Dude, why are they doing this? I don't know.
I don't
I'm
know,
getting tired of
but
prequels, man. Anyway, go on. Continue.
it's getting Lucas in here. It's getting real Lucas.
It's not just
So
getting I don't know. I'll have a diatribe about this, but continue, please.
save it, bottle it, harness it. So that story, for those who hadn't been paying attention, was basically
Yeah, you
Knack
keeping
and
notes? You
a
writing this down? There's gonna be a test after
keeping
this.
notes.
Yeah.
And God, I called him Knack. Oh boy, Knack, Fang,
Same thing.
potato, Jet the Jerboa. It's all the same.
He's
So
Knack. You can burn me at the stake until I die. He's named Knack. No,
yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't come after me. Continue,
Diesel,
please.
Jerboa, same difference, right? Anywho, so Fang goes off in his whole thing because he's trying to find this mythical eighth Chaos Emerald. Turns out, surprise, it's not a Chaos Emerald. It's the Warp Topaz. Yes, the Warp Topaz. Old Starline's favorite gimmickly new gem. So that's back and kind of another origin for it. So
Well, hold on.
obviously
Let me
Sega
stop
liked
you
that
right
idea.
here. Let me stop you right here. The
Okay.
Warp Topaz, is that an IDW thing?
Yes, that is correct. That was a completely new gem made up for IDW,
So
which
it's not
basically
not made by Sonic Team. Everybody taking notes? Everybody taking notes?
not
Again,
taking
maybe a
notes.
test at the end.
It's a cursed American idea.
You know.
So, long story short, they find it. It's being used by the hard boiled heavies from Mania, who are once again quasi complaining, contemplating, you know, dissension in the Eggman ranks. So, but it ends up, and it kind of they hinted it at it in the first issue, and then they pretty much solidify it in the fourth. Bean and Bart go off on their own. They're tired of dealing with Fang's treatment and his excessive use of the word mook. And
Wait,
yeah,
really?
you know,
I haven't read
yeah.
any of this. Okay. All
Oh
right.
no, like his new thing is like he calls him bomb mook and quiet mook. It's like, you throw a little, 1920s Brooklyn accent on him. So,
What?
you would
Okay.
think he's more of a cowboy because he's got the whole little fedora
Yeah,
and he's a
yeah.
hunter. But no, they kind of went with you know, 20s gangster lingo.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he might have called it. He calls Sonic Fleet Feet, which is, Fleet Way, Fleet Feet. I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah, back to the thing. IDW went on the main book went on hiatus for 4 months to put out this miniseries, which clearly was supposed to, clearly ties in with Superstars because it ends up with Ed Ben going, "Hey, I have a job. I found these new islands that I need you to go check out," and then that leads into the other Sega comic that they released where Fang met Trip and so on and so forth. But now we're back to the main story where I'm actually kind of excited for it because if you can go for my name of Godzilla, I'm a bit of a Tokusatsu fan. And if you've been paying attention to the solicits, Sonic's getting going a little Tokusatsu himself. I mean, he always has. But he's gotten a new persona called the Phantom Rider. So we're going to get, again, spoiler alert for the issue 69. That just came out. So the Restoration and Clutch's company Clean Sweep are about to do their big race for awareness, fundraising, whatever. But things are going on the sidelines. Mimic, under Clutch's instruction, has sabotaged Sonic, Amy, and Tails' Extreme Gears and has given a remote to Surge and Kit, who are also in this, to disable them in the qualifying round. So while Sonic has to deal with Jet blasting his beak off as normal, as per Jet in character, their boards go crazy, and then they get disqualified by Lanolin, who's acting as kind of the referee slash boots on the ground, make sure everyone plays nice,
slash not Sally,
slash not Sally, or slash not Jeffrey to some people. We'll talk about Lanolin another day because you
want to have an entire episode on it, huh? Okay, all right.
Well, we'll deal with her another time.
All right.
But needless to say, Sonic and Tails and Amy are upset, and they basically go to a diner, which for the purpose of this, let's refer to it as not IHOP, because they're hanging out, they're upset, and then who should show up walking in a purple trench coat and fedora is none other than Eggman, who orders not a Grand Slam with extra ham, and talks to Sonic saying, "Hey, let
me chime in here a little bit. I gotta say, if you haven't seen the way this Eggman looks in this not IHOP place, he is suave as fuck. I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
Like he rocks it really well. It's like, people make fun of like people who are obese. Like no, this guy is fucking cool. I mean, you love it. And if you don't like it, you need to turn this podcast off. Go somewhere else. Go touch grass.
It's one of those things where it's like you wouldn't think that purple would be his color.
Yeah.
But it works. It works. So Eggman kind of says, "Hey, I've been in a bit of a funk since you last, defeated me. And this whole thing has kind of got me back into my groove because in the opening ceremonies for Clean Sweep, they have this little caricature of a talking egg and like a crab meat, and it's Nick the Crab and Yolk Man. Clearly, puns on Eggman, and kind of pissed him off. It really did. So it's like, you know what? I want to know who's running this. I'm going to have some words with him. So lo and behold, he comes up with this new little Motobug inspired like extreme gear called the Egg Gear or something. I forget what it was called. But he and Sonic decide to team up to expose what's going on. And if you'd been paying attention to the solicits, they kind of spoiled it in the solicits, revealing that Sonic is basically becoming Kamen Rider. He's getting his own little tokusatsu suit known as the Phantom Rider. Now, sadly, Evan Stanley got a lot of grief for it on Twitter, for saying, "Oh my God, why did you spoil it in the solicitations?" Except one of the things in comics.
Oh, so she spoiled it. I wasn't sure if
No, she didn't.
She didn't. Okay.
She didn't. And this is something I knew because I've known about comics for a long time. But I think a lot of people didn't know is that the people who write the solicits in your monthly, like, oh, this book issue that's coming out in 2 months, it's usually like an intern or an editor. It's not even the writer of the book. So you can imagine, hey, you teenage, early college intern at IDW, write me a 4-sentence, hook for this issue. Ooh, and they went with Sonic's double identity has been revealed. Someone's framing him. Everyone's like, what? And sadly, a lot of that mystery and upsetness kind of bounced onto Evan, and they had to explain, oh, by the way, it wasn't my fault. I didn't write this. We will try to make sure the future ones aren't as spoilery, because obviously we kind of live in a very spoiler warnings are starting to get a little crazy now. People are taking them crazy. But lo and behold, I'm kind of excited. Again, I'm a Tokusatsu fan, so seeing Sonic kind of taking the Kamen Rider inspired look, I've always thought that would be a fun little thing for a game. Especially, him and Shadow kind of doing the henshin change. I mean, if you've seen an image on the internet of basically the Freedom Fighters heads plopped onto the Power Rangers, that was me. I've always think if they're ever going to bring them back, that would be the fun way to do it, as kind of a, call them the Freedom Rangers as some kind of little superhero group. Be a fun little take on them. But I'm kind of excited for where this is going to end up. Obviously, you got a lot of players. You got Surgeon Kit, Mimic, Clutch, the Diamond Cutters, who kind of, some could say they've kind of taken over the book a little bit, but then again, and we're going to get to this in shortly, Evan, Ian, all the other writers can only do so much with the game characters because they kind of have to be timeless. So he doesn't give much, room for development till the next, Sega game. But yeah, I would say it's kind of been running in, Sonic's, at least in the comics for the last year, has been kind of running in place. But at least for me, I think we're kind of getting in the right direction. So yeah, that's kind of my thought. I know, Rad, you've been kind of, what's a good word to describe it? Disgruntled, a little less than enthused. So hit the floor.
Well, I don't know. I don't touch them. I mean, I think a lot of people on Twitter, they're not really even reading IDW because, I don't know. Let me put it this way. Whenever I'm reading IDW, and this is no fault of the writers who put it together, or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not sure what happens behind the scenes, So I don't even want to speculate because I like a lot of the people who work in this comic. I mean, a lot of them are real people. This isn't AI, so you can't really.
They're really nice people.
Yeah, they're really nice people. So it's like I don't really want. I mean, I could sit here and speculate and dunk on whoever it is that makes these things, but at the same time I don't know. And a lot of it, what it is that it's me filling in the blanks, and it's just like this is amateur hour, so I don't really want to dive too deep, like what's the word, lean in too hard on dissing them. But this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing from everything in IDW. I see Sonic, and then I hear, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's me. Did you hear that or no?
I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear anything?
Was that the point that there was nothing? So you heard nothing.
You can't hear that, huh? I'm typing on my keyboard. I guess my phone's not picking up the folly. Anyway, that's what I hear. I hear somebody typing on a keyboard, and I'm hearing enter, and I'm pushing return, and pushing space. But I guess this microphone's good enough to where it doesn't pick that up. That's excellent. But I don't. It should pick it up. I don't know if you can hear it now. But anyway, that's what I'm hearing. So I had a diatribe that I wanted to talk about. Is this pretty much what you wanted to say? Was this your spiel, Scott? Was this everything?
That's kind of my spiel.
I don't want to step on your toes here. So
no. I mean, my toes are pretty big. Fair. This is the good time for the diatribe because it's kind of like leading into the next question of, is the problem all Sega? And the answer is, shakes the 8-ball. Most likely.
So, I was going to say, ask again later.
That would be the option B.
Okay. No, my diatribe is, I don't know if they really did this during the Archie days. I don't think they did because there wasn't as much communication as there is now. And, I always want to be fair. I should probably state that on the show, I want to always say that, remember, full disclosure, I am an idiot. So if I ever say anything wrong, or if anything I say comes off as like tone deaf or, somebody who didn't do the research, it's because, yes, very much, I didn't do my research or it's tone deaf. So feel free to tell me I'm wrong at any point. Feel free to chime in. Feel free to comment. Feel free to say anything. But with this being said, my diatribe was So you were saying I haven't read the Fang comic. I stopped reading. Full disclosure, I'm going to say that 500 times. Full disclosure, I have not, because I guess this is an origin story. Because we have this. This is episode 1. I have not read IDW past issue 50. For me, IDW Sonic is the comics. For me, the peak issue or the series of issue or the peak story, I would say, was Imposter Syndrome. That was the best, in my opinion.
I'll agree. That was really good. I love Surge and Kit. They are fun.
Yeah, this was the highest point of the book. But then after issue 50, it's really hard not to compare Archie Sonic with IDW Sonic. I mean, you could probably argue that it's the same thing. It's just evolved over time. But I would say that because they've evolved so much that it's like black and white difference, day and night difference, right? Example.
Oh, yeah.
Example. So, issue 13 of Archie, going way back here, was the introduction of Knuckles. And supposedly, according to, correct me if I'm wrong on this historical anecdote or note, mind you, we may have unreliable narrators among us on the internet. Supposedly, Knuckles was not supposed to be in the comics that early. Sega didn't want it that early. But due to communication, it's not like I can just chat to somebody in Discord.
90s,
yeah, early 90s.
Internet was not what we have now. I know, and I know for probably a lot of our listeners, maybe a little bit on the late teens, mid 20s, the kind of the Zoomer between the late millennials and Zoomers and so on and so forth. And this is not saying anything that's bad or anything, but early 90s telecoms were a lot different than what we have now. The fact that, again, this podcast in itself is the reason we call it Coast to Coast is we're on each side of the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the largest ocean on the planet. This could not have been done in the 90s.
Oh, hell
and
no.
that's a lot of what they had. So miscommunication, and I think we all know, we've all seen the Ghidorah meme of the 3-headed dragon and the 2 serious heads and the 1 goofy head, and that seemed to be a lot of Sega's point of view of each division, whether it be Sega Europe, Sega Japan, Sega America, looking at each other, because they had no idea what they wanted to do with this franchise. I think that's pretty clear. Or at least each division had an idea of what they wanted to do, and eventually things kind of played out the way they did.
Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Maybe.
Again.
That's my story.
Amateur hour. So here's the thing: is that because the painted perspective, like what Scott was saying, is that we really did not have. It's really hard to think about this. It's hard to believe we lived like this. It's hard to believe that there was time when you were bored and you had nothing to do. You didn't have a phone to, kill time with. It didn't exist. You had to find things. It sucked. Okay, here's a funny thing. A little anecdote. This is kind of a ramble, but I bought one of these American cereal boxes the other day, and I'm like, God damn, I used to look at these damn things. They used to entertain the hell out of me, looking at the back of a cereal box, Now it's like, no, the phone, that's where it's at. That's all the new stuff. That's where my TikToks and my YouTubes and my Instagrams, and that's where they all are. But, yes, that's how old I am, to paint you a picture. Anyway, going back.
We're dinosaurs.
Not quite. I mean, we are millennials. We are millennials. We are going to be.
We're proud of it.
We are the last generation to probably know what that life was like. Because Zoomers and I guess the new one Alpha, they're not going to know what life was like before the internet, and it's really hard to paint a picture. I think
when we were born, the Soviet Union was still a thing.
Wait,
the Cold War was still going.
Wait. Soviet Union. That 1989 was it? When did the fall?
That's when it fell.
Okay, well, I barely had brain cells at that age.
We were still alive. That's the point. The point I'm getting is that we've been around the block a bit.
Okay, so, I digress. What I'm trying to say is that the Knuckles, the issue 13 of Sonic, that was the introduction of Knuckles. And according to Ken Penders, they said that they weren't supposed to use Knuckles that early. Now, juxtapose this to the Fang comic, which happens, I don't know, 30 years later. Basically, this is now a prequel. It's basically, I mean, I would argue that this Fang comic, now that you tell me, because I haven't read it, this Fang comic is meant to just sell superstars. It's not really like something that adds anything to superstars. It's not really something that concludes superstars, which I haven't played, by the way. I know it happens.
It's fine
Because of
it's pretty it's harmless. But yeah, the whole point of the Fang thing really was
Scott claims harmless.
Explain why Fang was by himself in Superstars. Why Bean and Bark weren't there.
Okay.
Because literally, since Ian created the Hooligans and Archie, they've kind of just been a thing, even in Mania. Like, one of the few things you could say that Sega said, hey, this idea from Archie, we like that, and we're going to roll with it till we don't like it. Or till we stop caring.
Wait a minute. Tell me this isn't like a Metachlorians thing, or like only cis deal in absolutes. This isn't like that, is it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Because why didn't you learn more about what all the things that happen in Superstars? I'm like, God damn it, fuck you. Go on.
It's really, I think, more than anything, it's the rule of cool, which, and
all right, as long as it's cool. All right.
Yeah. Like, one of the big things, one of the most kind of received stories in the recent, IDW was Scrapnik Island. Now, Scrapnik Island did a lot of things that, most Sonic fans were like, hey, we brought back Mecha Sonic. I thought, they could only be Metal Sonic and stuff. But, the author, basically said, hey, I pitched an idea. Sega thought it was cool, and we ran with it. And I think that kind of really, yes, they have ideas for what they want to do with, characters. And one of those characters, Shadow, we'll talk about in a little bit. But if the idea is cool, I think they're willing to play ball. So that's kind of like a lot of the stuff is like, they thought Fang, Bean, and Bark were a cool idea, and it lasted, for as long as it did. And then they said, well, maybe it's not so much cool anymore. They haven't really done anything. Maybe we can, test the waters to see if these characters are still viable. I like Fang. Again, I think he's kind of a fun. I'd love to see him in the modern, because, especially, as much as the pop guns are fun, seeing him with a couple of Wisp-on pistols would be pretty dope. And also give him a bolo tie, because that would be funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to continue, my diatribe is not finished. I still got more to say.
Continue, my friend.
Yes. Now, you say this is a prequel. Now,
yes.
Let me ask you something, Scott. What was the last prequel you thoroughly enjoyed? And I mean thoroughly. Not like, it's aight. It's good. It's pretty good. Something like, hell yeah, this is my jam. What's the last prequel that made you say that?
Ooh, this is my jam? Ooh, that was my bad Idris Elba Knuckles.
Close enough.
If you're kind of like, close enough. Let me ask you this. This is kind of in the definition of prequel. Are we like, how would you say, like, a prequel to a main thing, or a prequel just to say, oh, we had these two things and we're going to throw something in between the two?
Let's just say something that
really.
Go on.
Well, let's just keep it basic. Let's keep, when we say prequel, we all think of Star Wars. So
I'm not thinking of Star Wars. There is actually a prequel. There is a prequel I really enjoy, but I'll let you go first.
No, you go first.
All right. Well, I guess spoilers. I mean, maybe this is why you're gonna hear this. You're gonna hear this word a lot. So I don't know. Welcome to the spoilers cast. We should just call the show Parental Advisory Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yes. The one prequel, which is not a movie and it is not a comic, it is a game. It was the reason why I enjoyed this prequel is because it was not sold as a prequel. It was like having the rug pulled from under you. You thought it was a sequel, but no, it was a prequel, and that is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I know it's a fucking game for your phone that you sit in one room and you turn on cameras and lights and you listen to a guy talk to you on a phone. I know. It's very simple. It's very simplistic. I get it. I get all the criticism. But
yeah, I thought you were gonna go with Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, but
I like that one too. Actually, no, that's a really good example. I didn't think about that one. No, that's a really good one. I guess that definitely comes in a close second or maybe first. I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good example.
The point is, there are good games that can act as kind of proof. And this is just games, movies, shows. I know this might be like Star Wars Rebels. I think is a really good show. That's technically a prequel before the main series. But yeah, prequel stories can be done, but they are tricky because
you get Jar Jar Binks.
The most recent. Well, like. You have the Obi-Wan show that came out a couple years ago, which is like the whole point was we're going to have Obi-Wan fight Vader and kind of add a little context of when I last left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master. And yeah, you could say that was what happened on Mustafar, but this kind of makes that exchange a little bit more concrete, but it's also a story that didn't actually have to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what this is. And, to Ian's credit, because Ian wrote the series, he's really good. It's one of his calling cards, besides entering random Sonic Crush 40 lyrics into dialogue, which God bless him for it, because he's a master of it. But it's like, hey, you remember Sonic Fighters? Remember how you fought for 8 Chaos Emeralds? But what if we did something with that and say, oh, Fang, he was in Sonic Fighters. What if he's looking for that fabled 8th Chaos Emerald? And everyone's like, what, the Master Emerald? Like, no, this is another one. They're like, no, there's only 7. Sonic's like, I find them all the time. I could write a book on them, but I'm too lazy to. But it's like, oh, well, turns out there is not an 8th Chaos Emerald. It's this other gem MacGuffin that has kind of been around the last couple years in the Warp Topaz, which is also kind of weird because they did a whole issue, that 900th adventure, where they kind of put it back where Starline found it. Yet the Fang series ends with Fang having it in the Marvelous Queen, which is his, little hover bike, which means he had it during Superstars, which then kind of really complicates things. But that would take a lot of thinking, and thinking is hard.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I had a thought while you were, talking about this. For somebody, people who probably listen to this show or are potential listeners, these are Sonic fans. These are Sonic fans on Twitter who, people like me who really need a life. And sorry, guys. You really need a life. I mean, I guess I have a life. I don't know. If you have a life, tell us about your life. We'd love to hear about it. Tell us about how much you touch grass, more than I do. I'm sure you're great. I'm sure whoever it is that our brave listeners who's made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you give us 5 stars. You tell your friends and your mom and your dad.
Thank you for putting up with our ramblings.
Oh yeah, you're like, yeah, they talk about the Sonic stuff. I know what they're talking about. That's awesome. If you know what they're talking about, that's great. Because a lot of the time, it's like, I'm sure if I had the same conversation with my mom or my dad, or randos at work, or heck, any of the clients I take care of, they're not going to know what the fuck I'm talking about. So if you've made it this far, and if you have some comments or something to say about how to make this show, because I already have an idea. I imagine that probably nobody's going to say anything, because that's usually how most internet shows go. It's just because engagement is always, it's easy to be a passive listener and actually engage.
Exactly.
I'm not talking down to you, mind you. Listen to this. So I'm covering all my bases. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening, if you're still here.
We love you.
Yes.
But we're still going on.
Yes. So if you have a way of making the show more accessible, let us know. But I'm gonna make my darndest to make sure the show's accessible. Yes, we talk about the comics. We talk about very pedantic things about this Sonic character, and I'm very amazed that we can continue to still have these conversations. With this all being said, we were on the topic of prequels, and I was looking through my phone while you were going on about the lore behind Sonic and what's everything that's going on. I'd have to say that I'm not too interested about what's going on. I don't really know what's going on with Ian and like Sega and something. I mean, the way I picture it is they're just like, Ian, we're making a Superstars, and they talk just like this, by the way. They don't. This is a joke. They say, Ian, we're gonna make a Superstars thing, and we need you to do a prequel. You can put whatever it is you want in it. Go ahead. Like, nice, right? I don't know what Ian says, but I imagine that's something like that. And so he has to work with what he's given, and because it's a licensed property, right?
And it's also you gotta have to juggle like fan questions because obviously this.
Well, they're the ones who buy the book.
Well, when did Superstars come out again? That was 2022, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the game's been almost out for a year and a half now. So for a lot of fans, it's like, well, here's Fang, where are Bean and Bark? And really,
October 17th, 2023. You were wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. It's been out for 6 months. Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it feels like 3 years ago, right?
Tell me, time flies. Time is a construct.
It's a flat circle.
Right. Destroy the whole timeline.
Yes.
But yeah, it's people are like, well, okay, Fang's back. That's really great. Where's his his crazy Deadpool-esque, is he a woodpecker? Is he a duck? We're never quite sure. And Silent Bob's persona and Bark, and like, where are they? It's like, well, this story kind of explains. They've kind of gone their separate ways, and it makes me sad because they were a fun trio in the Archie days. Because Bean was completely unhinged. Knack, because he was Knack then. He was kind of attempting to be the serious mercenary, and then poor Bark just had to deal with all of them. But yeah, it's sometimes that's what they have to do with this, and yeah, it is what it is.
Wait. Is this Sega kind of coming in saying, all right, Ian, we want you to do this Superstars prequel, but the one thing they have to do at the end is you have to dissolve the hooligans. You can't have them be a thing, all right? do you ever feel...
That have been the conversation. It's like, hey, Ian, we need you to tell the story of how the hooligans broke up. Okay.
It's like,
well, let's think. What random thing of Sonic trivia can I?
Yeah, we can't have anything in Sonic ever be interesting or make attention or be interesting for anybody. Sorry, I'm being very cynical. That's just how it feels sometimes.
I need some cynicalness to counterbalance my somewhat boundless optimism.
All right, okay, so that's fair. Yeah, because as I've said, I don't read the comics, and this is entirely the reason why. I mean, full disclosure for people who are just popping into this podcast, where we an hour in. Yeah, I read Archie when I was a kid. I started at the very, very issue 6, and I picked up all the earlier issues after reading 6, and then I stopped at issue 71 because. That issue was advertised as the strangest Sonic issue ever, and which is just
yes, the backwards issue.
Yeah, and that was the one that maybe I remember reading that, and I'm just saying I'm done. I'm done with this. It's like, how old am I? I should go look in the mirror and see who I am as a person. I need to go rethink my life. I don't know why that issue did that to me, but it did. I stopped collecting them. I moved on to other things. I did not play. Just for some history and some background, I did not play Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure 2 or Heroes or any of those. I didn't even know anything about the Werehog stuff. I didn't know anything about that. I mean, the most I knew was that Sonic 06 was bad, and what is it? That there was these guys on Game Scoop. I can't remember what it was, IGN or something. The whole Sonic was never good thing, and that kind of like rekindled my my interest in this character. I'm like, wait, was it never good? And I really had to think about it. Like, I really had to think about it. I'm like, has my whole life been a lie? Have I been like, am I a product of corporate greed? You know, questions I really asked myself. And I mean, I'm being a little facetious here, but I am also being serious. Uh, which is why you've got me here on this podcast with our good friend Godzilla Scott. You know, so
we'll figure out an alias for me eventually.
You know? Yeah. Right now, you're just Godzilla Scott, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Scottzilla, you know.
Hey, that's a good one. I like that. So, mind you, I was looking through prequels of. Again, I'm going to go back to this. I'm not done. Not done. Did you watch Better Call Saul?
I did, and again, another perfect example of a prequel that is quality, but also really almost recontextualizes its predecessor.
So if you had to give Better Calls, did you watch the whole show? Did you finish it?
Yeah, I did it.
Okay.
Why do you think I made the Better Call Sal meme?
Okay. All right. We'll go into that later. But my question is, if you had to give the show a letter grade, what would you give it?
A, easily.
A plus or just A?
I'm gonna give it a solid A.
Solid A. Okay, I would go with B plus.
Like a 95.
I like Breaking Bad better.
Okay.
I mean, I know they're like completely different shows. It's like comparing apples and oranges, but for me, the worst part about Better Call Saul is that because I saw Breaking Bad, because I knew all these little elements that already happened, it became rather much a slog for me to get through. It became very much like, when are we getting to Cinnabon? When are we getting to the end? I'm tired of like waiting, man. I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, how many episodes do we get to Cinnabon? Like, how many seasons do we get there? You know, and you're like, people are like, no, man, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, I'll enjoy the journey. And I mean, and it was fine. It was good. But I don't know. Now looking back, I'm like, God damn, did I really watch 6 seasons of this before I could get, like, it was only until like the 6th season where they finally get the Cinnabon. And to me, it's like, that's the stuff I want to see. That's what I want to watch, you know? And that's sort of how I feel about a lot of prequels. It's like, I already know what happens. I already know that, you know, what needs to happen, right? You know, otherwise you get stuff like, I guess to use another example of a prequel, like Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's like, well, if you think about it, I remember watching that when that first came out in 1999, and I remember thinking, as a kid, it was a big deal. And I remember thinking, wow, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. It's Star Wars. It's back. It's cool. It's CGI masterpiece, right? I was thinking, this, mind you, I'm like 10 years old or something, right? Or not 6 years old.
This was pod racing.
Yeah, this was pod racing, right? I thought a lot of it was cool. I thought the pod racing things were cool. Lizard. And then you think about it. You think about, you're like, wait a minute, that Jar Jar Binks guy was really annoying. Like, why did we need this? Like, why did we have all this Jar Jar Binks stuff? You're like, that was weird. And then, like, what is it? Like, I guess Red Letter Media came out, and they're like, this movie's awful. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess they're right, huh? You know, I don't want to echo too much of what Red Letter Media said, but it got to the point where I started to realize that making prequels is very difficult, and for them to be enjoyable.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And sometimes they make them do it, sometimes they don't.
Right.
But kind of taking it back to Sonic for a bit.
Yes. What I'm saying is important towards Sonic, but yes, continue.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, but, it's okay. Don't. Whenever I step on your toes, remember, I'm just, you know, you got big toes, so it's fine.
I got big toes, but we've kind of gotten to this point where does Sonic go from here? Because
I don't know,
it's kind of interesting because we're kind of getting this point where we've had success for these last couple years. Frontiers, and we can definitely spend an entire episode talking about that game. It was fine. It was enjoyable. It was far from perfect.
Yeah,
And
I enjoyed it. I liked it. B
I like
plus.
it. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'd give it a B. But at the same time, it's like you had to give it a DLC to give it like the actual ending.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah, that DLC ending
it
was pretty cool, even though I haven't played it. I watched other people play
oh
it.
yeah,
It was
it
great.
was great. It was hard. It was crazy. It was like the difficulty was ridiculous. But it's like where are we going? Because like I for one I kind of like the whole tokusatsu writer element they got going on the comics. It could crash and burn, or maybe it to keep with the racing metaphors. It does a victory lap. It's in the winner's circle. But comes a question of where do we go from here, and kind of leads into my next thing idea that kind of goes hand in hand with that is a couple of months ago. They announced Sonic X Shadow Generations in January, and then I think it was like April they did the whole "This is the year of Shadow, be fearless." It's like, okay, and they just recently announced that they're going to do a panel with Azuka, Kirk Thornton, Shadow's current VA and longtime, voice actor, and Stephanie Seff, who pretty much been not officially confirmed, but I think the writing's on the wall that she's Maria Robotnik's new voice actress. They're going to be doing a panel to kind of hype up the new prequel animation to Sonic X Shadow Generations. I think Shadow Dark Beginnings, yada yada. So it's kind of like it seems to me that they're using all of this to kind of set who Shadow is going forward, because Shadow as a character has kind of been all over the place since his inception. Like, and kind of going with like, okay, we're re-establishing this character and we're going forward. So I think that's kind of what we've been seeing with some of these other things, is they've been kind of trying to reestablish, okay, these are the characters, these are what their core values are, these are their stories, and then we're going forward with them. And where they're going forward, I'm a little hesitant, wary, because
you're not alone.
A lot of not alone. Like, I trust a lot of either the developers and the writers and the artists, because they have so much passion for this IP.
Yes.
What my question, where I am wary, is the corporate executives, because ultimately you need money to make quality, and Sega has not really.
Sometimes. I'd argue that you don't always need the money. You could be a creative. I've seen people get really super creative with very little money. But anyway, continue. Not here to contradict you, mind you.
But
I'm here to chime in. I'm a chimer.
Chime in. You're chimey. You're a charmy. Charmy B.
Yeah.
But
I'm not doing that voice.
Time is also yeah, neither am I. Time is essential, and I think Sonic has had a history of things not having the proper time to cook. Sonic 06. And even Frontiers, to an example, where it's like they've had to rush these games out. It's like if you let the QA team have another run through it, have the script go through another set of editing revisions, it will make the things better in the long run. But at the same time, you got to make money, and you got to strike when the iron is hot, or the fire is hot. And right now, the fire is hot.
Oh yeah,
and it's gonna get.
I wouldn't be making 2 podcasts on Sonic the Hedgehog if it wasn't hot.
Yeah,
one that's on
crazy man
on the back burner for a long goddamn time, because I don't know what the fuck to do with it. But anyway, yes, continue. Sorry, I'm only chiming in for comic relief. Okay, please continue.
You are the comic relief, because I am a terrible. Whatever.
No, you're great. On. You're great. We need to bounce off each other. This is the you're like the sizzle and I'm the steak, or the steak and the sugar and the I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sugar and sweet. Jack and Coke.
Sweet and Low. Yeah, that stuff's fucking terrible.
Exactly.
Anyway,
and again, to our listeners, thank you for your patience as we kind of build the story around this. But yeah, it's kind of where we're going forward. I'm interested. I'm a little trepidatious. I think most people are, who especially have been around the franchise for as long as we have, because it's like we've seen some things. We've seen some things.
What do you mean? What do you mean we've seen some things?
I've seen some things.
Such as?
You know. No comment. No comment.
That bad, huh? Okay. All right.
I mean, again, if you've read the Archie, I love the Archie series deaths, but there were some things that were really like straight up tone death.
Such as?
Fun fact. In the Archie adaptation of Sonic Adventure, in the climax of the story, instead of Super Sonic defeating Perfect Chaos, it's Super Sonic leading Perfect Chaos into some electrical wires that Knuckles lifts up from underwater, completely ripping off one of the legendary Spider-Man story arcs. As it is basically Knuckles' ability to lift up this power generator.
Was this a Penders issue?
That causes electrical. This was a Penders issue.
Okay, he loves aping.
Wasn't quite.
What? How many shows and movies has he aped? What was it? James Bond, The Fugitive. What's that? The Graduate.
Well,
Cops. He even did Cops. Like Sonic says, Bad Boys. Bad Boys. Go on, continue.
That was a '90s thing, though.
It was a '90s thing. It's like what the fuck is this doing in the Sonic? Anyway, continue. I mean, nobody cared back then. I mean, maybe he thinks nobody cares now.
No one cared back then.
Or maybe no, I think they do care now. But
yeah, they do care now. But again, it's not to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I'm not saying this is an excuse, but you write what you know, and let's be honest, a lot of the writers at that time, what they knew was all the pop culture of the 70s and 80s, because that's when they grew up, and they just applied that to this new little blue hedgehog. It's not an excuse, it's just kind of reality.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's true. Well, okay.
Well, Rad, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What would make you excited about Sonic going forward?
I don't know, man. It's just sort of like, given what I know, it's just sort of like, I know I'm not going to get it. Because, I'm a 90s kid, right? It's like, of course, I love my SatAM. I love the early Archie. I'm probably stuck in the past, And I mean, I look at this new stuff and I'm sort of like, I guess it's cool. I mean, I guess like the artwork. Okay, I will say this. The artwork is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. It's like, okay, I'll tell you this. What was that one that came out? The 30th anniversary comic. The one that was like Classic Sonic. Do you remember that?
Oh, the Seasons of Chaos. Yeah, that was.
I would have ate that. Book. I mean, I hated the ending. Sorry, those who love it, but the way it looks beautiful, and I mean, it looks like the game, and I would have ate that up as a kid, because the weird thing about watching Sonic back then was that like you had the stuff with the Freedom Fighters and Sally Acorn and like what was it Archie and SatAM and all that stuff, and what is it, even Adventures of. And I remember thinking like, what? This isn't like the games. This isn't it. What is this? And I understand why you have like younger people who find out about the SatAM crowd and they're sort of like,
these are cringy adults.
Yeah, these are like, what is this old shit, right? What is this black and white subtitled movie that I could easily, I would much rather watch TikTok in like 3 seconds, right? Sorry, TikTok friends. But anyway, no, what I'm saying is I do empathize with you. I totally get it because none of it is like the game at all, right? So, I mean, if I saw something like that 30th anniversary, I'm like, yeah, this is on brand. It's the same thing, right? But at that time in the 90s, you had no internet. You had no way of like communicating with other people. You just kind of accepted what you got. It's like, why isn't Bebop and Rocksteady in the Ninja Turtles movies? Of course, they showed up in the second one. But, like, stuff like that. Like, you would notice, like, certain, things
Actually, that
were...
was Toka and Razor. But, yes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. But anyway, yes. Yeah, you would notice like these little things, these little differences, and you just said, "Oh, that's just the way it is." Like, characters were off model, and you really didn't really care too much about it. You didn't have these long, deep conversations about like, well, Sonic is out of character, not my Sonic, right? You didn't have these conversations. You just accepted it. You just watched it. Of course, I'm not a big fan of Adventures of, but I'm a huge fan of SatAM, and I didn't really I didn't, the funny thing is, as somebody who's in his late 30s or going on his late 30s, I didn't understand how important the show was to me when I watched it, and how I based all my media consumption based upon this show, right? And a lot of what it is that I'd love to see more of that stuff. And I know I'm not alone, because I know a lot of people who I randomly talk to who are around my age who all remember this show. It's not like some show that nobody remembers. I mean, I guess a lot of it you kind of have to thank the Archie comics for keeping the SatAM show still alive, and a lot of the a lot of the elements that still exist in it. And I mean, some of it still exists today. You still have like the "do it to it" line that Sonic says, and a lot of the
love the chili dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know the origin behind that, but you had a lot of
Adventure of.
Yeah, I think it was Adventures of. But anyway, what does matter is what I'd like to see is more of that. But I know, like, I don't think we can ever go back to those days. It gets to the point where it's like, if they made something that was interesting, I would be surprised. Because I mean, I guess with all Sonic media going forward, the best attitude, the best sort of mindset to going into any of this media is have very low expectations. Because what is it, like with the recent Knuckles series, I enjoyed it. I mean, besides the ending being entirely Wade-centric, which I guess somebody asked for, or somebody decided we needed to see.
Maintain, if Knuckles had a 7th episode, because 7 is a
yeah, you keep saying that. Yeah, I've been talking to Scott in private.
I think if there was a 7th episode, and trust me, folks, we'll talk about Sonic's adventures on the Silver Screen in a future episode, because there's a lot to go over it. Sonic's been on TV a lot, and that's really worth talking about. But to play into that, the Knuckles comic is show it's a flawed, but it's a fun. But if it had a extra bit of time at the end, I think a lot of the issues that people had would be a little bit relieved. I mean, there were some issues that people had that were never going to be, met. But if you gave that ending, those last 2 episodes, another episode to kind of spread things out, focus a little bit more on some things, we could have got a really good conclusion for the story that they kind of set up in those first 4 episodes.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
the climax is really
they
forced.
They ended off with another rock opera.
You really liked that rock opera. I thought it was okay. Well, I don't know.
Oh, it was great. It was absurd.
I know you liked it.
I mean, let the Lonely Island guys like have full run with this franchise, because clearly they put effort into it, and we're like, we're gonna go crazy and we're gonna go full hog on it. And you saw that there was passion to it.
Yeah, there definitely was.
I mean, they brought Iblis. They had Iblis. Of all things they referenced, Iblis.
I saw somebody in
of disaster.
the Bumblecast server saying, "Why is Iblis in this?" I don't know if you said it that way, but I'm sorry if you didn't say it that way, whoever you are. I can't remember who it is that said this, but they're like, I can't remember. He said that in a way that made him like annoyed. Here's the problem with the internet. It's like I can't tell people's inflection. I'm like the way they're talking. But yeah, like why was he so upset that, Iblis is in this? And like now after watching the show, I'm like, I can kind of see that. But I mean, they work with what they're given. And from what I understand, the movies can only reference the games. They can't reference any of the cartoons or the comic books or any of those. So, and Iblis is Sally. In what's up?
I said rip live action Sally. I had
Well,
my
I
fan
don't
cast.
know.
I was
I
ready.
don't think it's just Rip. I think people remember this damn show, and I mean, it's just like if Sega's smart and if they know what to do, they tap into that market, just like the X-Men, the '90s X-Men show, and because
X-Men 97 was amazing.
yeah, people liked it, and I'm saying is just that I'm sure Sega knows. Either number one, I have a couple of theories. One, they just want nothing to do with it, and they want to focus on the future. But I get the impression that they have to keep on going to the past, and regurgitate what it is that people remember, because the way sequels work is you need to always make another installment or another edition of something, like putting new wine in an old bottle. You can't just like rewrite the entire book. You can, but it does kind of leave some people cold. I mean, especially like, I guess this is like a topic for another day, but like with Sonic Frontiers, which is basically they were trying to go with an entirely new direction. Because to me, it's like for me, opinions on Sonic the Hedgehog, the ones that matter the most are from the ones who are not serious Sonic fans, the people who don't take it very seriously. And the overall opinion I got in Sonic Frontiers from not Sonic fans, casual gamers, normies, if you would say, mind you,
The normies.
Yeah, everyone pretty much said the same thing, is that this is Breath of the Wild, but with Sonic the Hedgehog. This is like this is like was it Mario 2, the Doki Doki Panic. It's like, it's Mario, but that's not really a Mario game. I don't, you remember Mario 2, right? The really weird one?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that. And so, I don't know.
It lacked the flavor of the franchise, and I liked Frontiers fine enough, but again, it was the environment was almost kind of as jarring as 06 was, because it's like, here you have the animal peoples and robots, because Omega was in that game, and anytime I can reference Omega and make sure he is remembered, because Sega is always erasing his presence in these stories. But it's like, you have these character little animal people, and they're walking around with like normalized humans. It's not like Unleashed, where they kind of became cartoony humans. It's like photorealistic humans and animal people. And it's like, these not quite gelling together, but then when they did Unleashed, they found a way to gel it together.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you look at Frontiers, it's like, you have Sonic, you have Amy, you have Tails, you got Eggman, you brought in Sage. Sage is great. I can't wait to see what they keep doing with her, because she's going to change up the status quo a lot. Hopefully. Maybe. Yeah. But at the same time, like, the Starfall Islands are so bland. They lack any kind of like
Yeah.
thing that makes it feel like Sonic. It's like, obviously the Chaos Island and Ares Island I enjoyed, because they had a little bit of flavor identity to them. But it's like, give me some palm trees. Like, give me, a casino. Like, I do think, and kind of to reference what we talked a little about earlier, I talked about how Metal Gear Solid 3 was one of the great prequel stories in franchises.
Yeah.
I think how, if you've ever played Metal Gear Solid 5 and how they set up the layout, because that was an open world game too, where you had your hub, base, and then you had a large area in Afghanistan, in Central Africa, where you told the stories.
Mm-hmm.
You could do the same thing with Sonic, where you have one island that is the typical islands like that we're seeing in IW Comics. Spiral Hill Village, Central City, Seaside City, Sunset City, not the podcast, the actual city, where you can see all the little areas, and then do another, this wouldn't be an island, but another map area where you would have like Station Square, a city, you know, a more some of the biomes that we saw in the adventure games. You could do both, and then heck, you could even patch out little mini areas for like Angel Island, the Space Colony Arc. Like, I mean, obviously that probably costs time and money, but I have hope from where they're going that they can improve on. It's just, will they improve on it?
Yeah, see this is the big issue I have.
Rambling.
This no. I'm 100% listening, and what you're doing is not rambling. I will say you are. Let me see. I see you as seen, not seen as in like I'm ignoring you. Seen as in like I understand. What I'm saying is, they have a lot of stuff, and they have a lot of things to make something interesting, obviously, right? But the biggest problem is, shit, I don't know. The biggest problem is that there's so much to work with, and there's so many people to please, and it gets to the point where it's like you can't
please everyone.
You can't please everyone, but at the same time, they do want to make a good product. So, for example, going back to this whole "you're the shadow" thing, you're a shadow, whatever. I'm very cynical about it because it's just based upon what I know about listening to Bumblecast and seeing what I've read online with interviews and stuff. It seems like Sega is very protective of Shadow the Hedgehog, and Shadow the Hedgehog is extremely popular in terms of like characters. Of course, the Sonic movies wanted to jump in.
Sonic Boom, he is the second most popular character in the franchise.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I love how on the nose
Sonic Boom cartoon.
I love how on the nose that show is. But anyway,
like that was the joke in the end of season 1 where, Shadow shows up and all the Boom character original guys are like, "Who's this guy?" And Eggman's like, "That's Shadow the Hedgehog. He's the second most popular character in the franchise." And it's a joke, but it's kind of true.
Right, right.
We ragged on them all in the late 2000s.
I'll tell you one thing.
For better or worse.
For better or worse.
I mean, for better or worse.
Oh, that you're done.
He has been a driving force on the franchise since SA2, and yeah.
I will say this much: the people at Paramount are smart because them choosing Keanu for the voice of this character has been a very smart move. Because I've been talking to people who are not Sonic fans. Again, I'm going to stress their opinions are the ones that matter. We got super fans like us. But the problem is a lot of us get too lost in the sauce with our own desires. They already got our money. They already got our money. They got us hooked. They got us on life support. We're not gonna, They want us to keep us in their system forever. They figured out a way how to keep us in there. Anyway, this analogy is going off the rails. Pretty much is their opinion is who matters more. And so now I'm talking to people who are not Sonic fans. There is one guy I was listening to on, what is it? Oh, no, a YouTuber I watch, Patrick Willems. He talks about movies all the time. He was talking about the Mario movie and faithful adaptations. Great video. I highly recommend everybody to go watch it, and especially people who say certain adaptations are not faithful. It's excellent. He makes great videos, but hashtag not sponsored. But he talked about how he was a big fan of the Sad M show back in the day when he was 6 years old, and also how, because he didn't talk about the Sonic movies at all, because he has no familiarity, but he was very excited to see that Keanu was doing the voice. And I'm also on another podcast called Internet Reactions with my friend Jay, who used to do this podcast on cringy Japan content creators, was a King of Kanto. And he brought up that how it was really cool that Keanu is voicing Shadow the Hedgehog. So, A+ effort by them. I hope they stick the landing. I hope it really is. It makes me like Shadow the Hedgehog, because right now it just seems like based upon what I've seen with the games and what I've seen with him in IDW, not good, Bob. Not liking it. It's very meh.
Trending in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we'll definitely go into the whole casting thing of Keanu, because that is a story in and of itself, because that whole series of events of how things came to be and where they actually announced Keanu's is the most unlikely of sources, and we'll talk about that another day. I think once we get an actual Sonic 3 trailer, which hopefully within the next couple weeks, we can really deep dive into the Paramount universe, because some fun things have been happening there. But yeah,
hopefully
Sega is again. But
Sega's again. Continue.
Oh yeah, Sega. They already have our money. They've had our money for 30 years. It's getting these new people. Like, I was on Twitter one day, and people are like, post the age of how old you were when the first Sonic movie came out. And it's like,
yeah, I saw that
10,
too.
I was 12.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm old.
But
again, for movie Sonic, it's going to be the Sonic for the upcoming generation. So the fact that they're doing their best to go whole hog on it is, it's hopefully going to pan out.
That's a good contender for the title. I was either going to do parental advisory, spoilers, or going whole hog. I don't know. One of those.
Go whole hog. Running in place or whole hog.
All right. I kind of have to wrap this episode up. I got some things
I was going to say, we've kind of rambled on.
No. It is not a ramble.
Everything.
Remember, when you've watched this, it's not a ramble. You have seen it. It's like you on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and it says seen. Now you've gotten this far.
Yeah.
So fill out, we're going to try to do this show every week. If something happens, and let's say somebody gets sick, or I'm on vacation. I do have some vacation time coming up here. Maybe we might record 2 episodes, maybe not. This is what will happen. But we're going to try to do everything every week. We're going to try to do as minimal amount of editing effort as possible, unless we say a credit card number, a social security number, or something that we can have out there on the internet. Or if I think back, I'm like, God damn, that was really stupid. What the fuck am I talking about? I'm going to have to edit that out. But for the most of the time, this is raw.
Yeah.
This is
raw.
Raw hog.
Raw, full hog.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, thank you all. This is a growing practice. There's the great thing. There's so much stuff about Sonic we can talk about. IDW. I know we talked a lot about IDW.
We will be here a while. We got a lot to fucking say. But continue.
We got a lot to talk about. Let us know what you want to hear about. You want to hear about, Archie video games. I know we're definitely going to talk about the Paramount Sonic Boom universe. We're going to talk about the games, obviously. I'm sure at one point we will have the Sally Acorn special.
So yes.
A couple special guests for that.
Yeah.
So, the Simp Council.
Yes. So full disclosure, again, the 5th and 8th time I'm going to say that today. I'm going to say, I don't know, this is the Full Disclosure podcast. Shit, we got so many great titles for this show. The full disclosure kind of sucks. Anyway,
we are Hydra.
Yes. Yeah, we are. Go follow if you are a fan of the character Sally Acorn. Yeah, you should go follow us on Rally for Sally on under that name on Twitter to go follow us to help us bring back the character, because we are people who write tweets for that. Because if you like that character, be sure to go follow that, because we need to boost those numbers. And I'm not just saying that follow it, the call to action. I'm not just doing that because the higher ups, the people, they're too busy. They're shareholders. They care about numbers. They care about money. So if you want to see this character again, because we write tweets for it, we try to improve it. We would really like your follow, even if you don't really use Twitter. those numbers really do mean a thing. And maybe, yes, maybe some of it is bots and they're not real people. But some of those are real people and they follow us and they like our posts and all that stuff. So
you're real to us.
Yes, you're real to us. Yes, thank you. That's a great way to put it.
But yeah, I mean, we have so much to talk about.
Yes, this is only the beginning.
When you've lasted, this is only the beginning. This is the genesis of Sonic Host.
Hey, there you go. There we go. Bring it around. All right, let's end it there. I'm going to end it
ending on a high note.
Yep, in 3, 2, 1.